So one of the things that John mentioned in the introduction is that we can, through CILogon, support ports other than 443, which is a technical way of saying that we can support command line tools and other tooling that's not actually operating through a web browser. And the one that everybody cares about the most is SSH, because that's how you get shell access to all those other resources. And so I'm going to spend a fair amount of time. I'm going to have 3 different demos talking about SSH access. And this first one is going to be using what we call device flow. So this is a special type of flow. And you are actually completely familiar with this because you all have smart TVs or other smart appliances, and you want to hook them up to Netflix or on these other types of services. And you started that process, and it will show you something like a QR code. And then you go off to your phone because your phone has a web browser and is able to actually do the authentication. So you go off to your phone, you do the authentication, and then you go back to the smart TV or the appliance, and it actually has a back channel communication so that it knows you did the authentication on the phone. And we can do the exact same thing for SSH. So I'm going to, first of all, for the experts, I know there's probably some experts here. I want to make sure you understand that there's nothing up my sleeve here. So if you're an SSH expert, you'll recognize that I have no pre-existing identities configured. There's no SSH key servers here or anything like that. So now that the experts believe me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually SSH to a node I have set up that has this infrastructure set up. Okay, and so you see what it does is it prints a URL. We could actually configure it to do a QR code, although in our experience, people don't like the QR codes when they're logging in with SSH because they're generally sitting at a computer. They're not interested in using their phone with SSH. But it wants me to go to this URL, so I'm going to copy this, come up to my web browser, and come over here. And I'm going to evaluate that URL. And I'm going to use the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. I'm going to log on. But this window, I already have a session here, so I don't think you're going to have to, you're not going to have to watch me log in again. But it says, hey, you successfully approved the user code. Return to your device for further instructions. So I go over here, I hit enter. And if everything's working well for the demo, it is. I logged into the Bastion node. And so I was able to use this federated identity infrastructure to actually SSH into a shell device. And to make sure that you understand that, again, we really can do the fine-grained authorization. I'm going to go to the co-manage where this information is being managed. And this co-manage, by the way, is a multi-tenant platform. And so this is a co-manage, the test co-manage in the United States. And you can see we have quite a bit of projects here. I'm going to click on this one. This is the organization where I've got this infrastructure hooked up. So it's a pretend organization we made up called Medium Energy Synchrotron Source, or MESS. And I'm going to go to my record, this user's record, and I am going to suspend this user. Maybe they've done something naughty, and the security person, David's come in and said, hey, we need to suspend this person. So David could log in as administrator and do that. And now that the user's suspended, I can come back over here and I can try to log in again. It's going to give me a URL to go through the flow. Come back up here. CILogon is going to authenticate the user again, but it's going to send some information back to the service that says, hey, this user is actually suspended, and now the user can't get in. So we're able to do that and have this fine-grained authorization and the life cycle, manage the life cycle of the user. And if I set them to active and save it again, then I'll be able to go through. But in the interest of time, I think I will just ask, this is the next one, if anybody has any questions on device flow for SSH.
Yeah, Scott, I got a quick question. How does it know what Unix user you are?
Good question. So we have a lot of flexibility about how we do that. And for this particular deployment, it's all configured so that I have an identifier. Let's make sure you can see that. I have an identifier here called the UID on this record. And it's been configured so that the UID is what gets processed as part of the set of information that gets sent to the service on the back end. That's completely configurable, so we have lots of flexibility, and we can also generate these UIDs automatically for users. So some organizations don't want to let users choose their own identifier, and they want to have them auto-generated. So we can have co-manage do either of those things, and then we can configure the infrastructure so that different services are presented with different pieces of information.
Yeah, so Darcy's asked, was the user record created as part of the SSH login, or was that there previously?
Good question. For this demo, I had pre-provisioned the account because it's a demo.
Yep.
But co-manage has a rich set of provisioners, we call them. I don't know if I have any. The only one I have set up here is the LDAP provisioner. But we have a number of different provisioners, and so co-manage can push out information to various services. So we can send it along as part of the authentication flow, but we can also do a provisioning or a push of the information at different parts of the lifecycle management. And so a typical use case for something like a high-performance computing center would be to push that information out at the time the user is enrolled so that the organization can consume that information and create home directories, Unix accounts, and things like that.
So we've, I guess, talked with some customers about pushing it directly to their computing nodes and creating accounts, or provisioning a staging table so they can run sort of a batch process and then a couple of times a day provisioning new users, depending on how they want it to work.
Exactly. I'm going to talk about that in just a second, too.
Did that answer your question, Nick?
Yes, did. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.